Yes, Coach. Considering how fast Arkansas State intends to play, they have a quarterback who was their Player of the Year
Mhm.
in his conference last year. How does that impact your defense, and particularly the substitution patterns that you're going to?
We'll keep the same patterns, and we plan on rotating between 20 and 25 guys, and that's been kind of our deal since um, 2009. In our first season here, so we've always planned on playing a lot of guys on the defensive side of the ball. I think obviously you're going to get um, a lot of reps in a game like this or in any game that we've played. So we're built and built for depth. We really strive for it in practice. We practice at a pretty fast clip ourselves, and I think our guys are used to that tempo. But we plan on playing between 20 and 25 guys in the opener on the defense side of the ball. So
Go to Rick.
I know they're a bit of an unknown, but what do you have for a scouting report on Arkansas State?
obviously Gus has just got there. Got a ton of respect for Gus as a football coach, one of the top offensive coordinators out there. In the when he was at Tulsa and then when he was at Auburn, and we've got some familiarity with his scheme on the offensive side of the ball because we played them 2 years ago in the championship game. So, um, you know, defensively, John Thompson is another guy who's been around for a long time, and is well known as a defensive coordinator and always has a very well coached um, team. So I think from a schematic standpoint, you have an understanding of what those guys do, but actually how they implemented it with their team, you don't know until you see them because the first time they play us will be the first time that anybody gets a chance to see what the Gus Malzahn version of Arkansas State is. But from a player standpoint, obviously it starts with their quarterback, who was the player of the year in their conference last year. And he can beat you throwing the ball. He can beat you running with the ball. So, much like playing Auburn, where it started with the quarterback, playing these guys on offense, our defense is going to start with their quarterback. So,
Chris.
As far as some of the weapons around David Oku and Jarbo and Stockmer, some of those guys, have you developed a sense of them yet from watching them on film?
yeah, I mean, obviously they're talented in terms of where they are. Oku is a highly recruited kid in transfer from Tennessee. Their other running back is a good football player, but the receivers I think were the strength of the team last year, along with Applin. But it really is, how is Gus going to deploy those guys? But from a skill set, you can see that it's the same thing we look at on defense. I don't know exactly how they're going to use those corners, but they're pretty good when you see them on film. So it's a talented football team. You don't do what they did. They played Illinois very tough. They played Virginia Tech very tough, and then made a huge run in their league and went to a bowl game. So it's a good football team.
Do you think you'll learn more about your team in an opener like this compared to an opener like LSU?
No,
Rob.
Do you have a biggest question about your team coming out of camp and going into the first game?
no, and I've never approached it that way. What's my question here? What's my question there? It's just, we're focused, and this is game week, just like it's week 10 for us or week 1 for us. Are we getting my questions always are we getting enough reps in red zone? Do we get an adequate look when we were in 2-minute situation? Today we'll go in and watch tape, and I felt like when it was on the field, it felt like it was good, but then you go back in and look at the film, and you're always tweaking something. So there are questions, but there's not like an overarching question like how will this happen, because there's so many unknowns in this game. When it's every time you think you have the answer, you just we were talking the other day. We started in 2009. If you asked us what the strength of our football team was, we would have said it was our secondary. When T.J. Ward goes down in the first game, Walter Thurman's done for the year, and Willie Glasper's done. Now all of a sudden you're like, well, what do we got to do now? So you really don't know. And we've had a lot of different situations come up during the course of the last 3 seasons, and I think our guys have all handled them. So, if no one can kind of predict what's going to happen, so you don't know how it's going to shake itself out. But all we're doing now is we're in total 100% game mode. Did we do this well enough? Did we do that well enough? The fortunate thing about how we've done it is because we had Monday practice on Saturday, and then today was a Wednesday for us. We have an extra day, which is tomorrow, before we get into our real Thursday, Friday routine, which we'll keep that the same. So tomorrow's kind of a bonus day, and when we meet today as a staff, it's what let's look at. Do we need extra work here, extra work here? How do we feel about these particular packages against this opponent? So.
Remember to please raise your hand, and we'll bring a microphone. Rick.
Curious about early season games like this. What's the thought process in in the game plan? How much do you show? How much do you want to see that the kids have got a grasp of, and how much do you just want to kind of keep in your back pocket for later?
We've never ever talked once about keeping anything in our back pocket. It's our goal is one thing is to win this football game on Saturday and make sure we put a plan in place where we can execute and that's it. But we don't look in when we're in our offensive room or defensive room at our totality of our offense and say, hey, let's not show that yet. You know, if that's going to help us win the game, then that's going to help us win the game. And that's always been our mentality. You know, I think if you ever do that, and you know, you're setting yourself up for failure because at times you're going to say, geez, I wish we practiced that because at this point in time, if it was in the game plan, we could execute it. But we've never gone into a game saying, hey, let's hold this or let's run that. So,
Molly?
For those of us who came in late, what are your thoughts on Arkansas State generally?
again, there's a lot of unknowns just because it's Gus's first year there. But you know, in terms of the staff he's put together, there's some of the most respected coaches in the country. So whether it's defending Gus's offense or John Thompson's defense, you know, those guys have won at a lot of different schools. You know, it's how quickly do they get their team acclimated to how they want to play. But there is some talented players coming back. And on offense, it starts with their quarterback, who was the player of the year in the league. They've got some talented wide receivers. They got transferred running back from Tennessee. So, I mean, they've got some athletes, and that conference is known for having athletes. So, there's still some unknowns, but you know, we expect an athletic team to come rolling in here on Saturday. So,
Janelle, we're going to go to the telephone lines. For those who want to ask a question for Coach Kelly, please press *1 on your telephone keypad.
One moment for your first question. There are no questions.
Okay, we're coming back here then. Give it back to Jordan, please.
I do apologize if this has been asked, but you know, when Malzahn was with Chiswick, he was asked to dial back the speed. How much faster do you think the new Malzahn will be than the one you saw at Auburn?
the one we saw played pretty fast, and I don't know if they were dialed back then. So, when I've seen Gus's teams, they've been playing at the same tempo and pace, whether he was at Arkansas or Tulsa or here. That may have happened last year, but we didn't play him last year. I know when we played him and he had Cam Newton, they were going pretty fast because I was standing on the sideline watching it. So,
Please raise your hand if you have a question. Adam?
You got 5 true freshmen listed on 2 deep going into this week. What about this class has impressed you most? Talking to some of the veterans, you know, they said surprised at how so many of them just were able to step right in line and kind of catch up so quickly.
yeah, I don't look at it as a totality because it's just everybody's an individual. So, whether you're a freshman, you're a senior, it's how you approach practice and what do you do. So, you know, we don't look at it and say there's 5 freshmen. There's just 5 kids that just got here that deserve to play. Some kids are come in and mature. Michael Clay did it. You know, other guys didn't. You know, we talked to our freshmen about it before. You know, Deion Jordan redshirted, Michael James redshirted, Kenyon Barner redshirted, Kiko Alonso redshirted. You know, but Michael Clay played. You know, Jake Fisher played. It just depends, and we approach everybody individually. We don't look at an entire class and say, hey, let's do this for the class. Let's not do that. It's just some of these guys had some opportunities at certain positions to show, and I think our style of practice allows everybody to kind of show us what they can do, and that's the one thing that we feel we've got an advantage in how we do things. Because a lot of times you go in programs and, well, I'm a young guy, I don't get a lot of reps. Well, we don't. I guarantee you, there's not one kid in our team that's complaining they didn't get enough reps during preseason camp, and that gives us an opportunity to evaluate it. And those 5 guys that have cracked the 2 deep, so to speak, have earned that playing time. So I'm excited about to see how those guys can play on Saturday because it'll be their first time in front of a crowd. But I think all 5 of those guys can handle it.
Rob?
If I could ask too, just because I wanted to ask about along those lines. If I could just follow up, you played 3 true freshmen. I think 2 years ago you played 5 in the opener last year. Will that number grow again in this opener?
I don't know. I mean, I really don't. I'm not being evasive. We'll see how it goes. I don't. I mean, if guys are ready to play, we're going to play them. The future for us is now. So I know some programs' ideas is, you know, hey, let's redshirt the entire class because we think we're going to be pretty good. I think we're going to be pretty good this year, and if they can contribute and help us win, then they're going to play. And
If we get that 5, maybe a Byron Marshall,
yeah,
3 running back.
there could be a lot.
Yeah.
You know, it could be 10. It could be whatever. I don't know how it's going to express itself because sometimes we have a plan going into the game, and then all of a sudden there's unknowns. You know, and that's the one thing that I think you can plan this thing out to a T. But in the Army, they say your plans change when you engage the enemy because they got a plan too. So if our plan is, hey, we're going to do this and we're going to run the ball this many times, and then all of a sudden we find ourselves down by 21, then we're going to throw it more than we thought we were going to. And now all of a sudden that guy doesn't get involved in the game. So we prepare like we've always prepared, and if that opportunity presents itself, then we'll get there. But we don't tell anybody going into the game that you're going to get X snaps or you're going to get Y snaps because I don't know how the game's going to play itself out.
We talked before about Marcus's demeanor and just trying to anticipate kind of how he'll handle the moment Saturday. I mean, what's the most rattled you've ever seen him get, whether it was on the field, off the field?
I can't recall seeing him rattled. So, I mean, he's a laid back dude. So, we'll see.
Standing at the lunch line and
I really honestly have never seen him.
Steve?
He's the same all the time, and I think it's a real admirable quality to have. There's a consistency with his approach every day. So,
Steve?
Saturday night will be a nationally televised game. How much of an interruption is that to the pace and tempo that you want to play at?
I don't understand the question.
Well, there's going to be commercial breaks
and things like
and
that.
and is that going to interrupt your tempo
But
or?
what I mean by that is that every game we've played since I've been here has been on television and it's had commercial breaks, so it's no different. There's always TV timeouts in every game we've played, since whether it was a local broadcast or whether it was a national broadcast, it doesn't change. The only time I think it's changed since I've been here is when you get to a championship game or a bowl game because I think they sell a little bit more advertising, but every regular season game is right around the same. I think they're all they're all right around 3 hours. So, and I know there's X amount of TV timeouts. So every regular season game's been the same since I've been here.
The TV format is the same all regular season, regardless of who is carrying the game. Oh, I'm sorry. Warren.
Chip, I talked to Keenan earlier, and he said this is the fastest in his 3 years here that practice has ever gone in regards to repetitions. Was that a conscious effort that you wanted to ramp up the pace this year as opposed to last year, or was that just a product of wanting to see more reps with more players?
I mean, I think it's everything. We're always every day trying to figure out how to practice better and how to be more efficient, and we're always trying to figure out new ways to do everything. New ways to run power, new ways to throw screens, new ways to tackle the ball carriers. So we're always, I think anybody that just stays the same, you've never, and we talked to our players about it, you've never arrived. We've never arrived as coaches. They've never arrived as players. And if we can find new things that we believe will give us an advantage, then we're going to use them. So,
Eric?
Sorry if this was mentioned before, too. We noticed Brian coming out with the white uniform on past couple days. Have there been different roles you've envisioned using him in other than quarterback?
Right now, no.
How come he comes out in the white uniform? Is there a reason for that?
There's a lot of guys walk out there with different colored jerseys. When you don't see behind the curtain, there's a lot of things that go on out there. A lot of guys change different colored jerseys when they get out there. So
Well, that's why I asked, since we're behind.
So the answer is yes, they change jerseys out there. And Brian is not the only guy that changes jerseys in practice. I would say probably half of our team does. So.
Okay, and then Nick Aliotti had said that preparing for a team with new coaches is one of the most difficult things to do. I know you touched on it a little bit. Is that one of the hardest parts for you from a coaching staff's perspective on the whole, preparing for a team with new coaches?
Yes, just because there's unknowns. I mean, you can go into a game, but I don't look at it as difficult. I look at difficult as playing, an unbelievable opponent. When you look at the filming, you know exactly what they're going to do, and then you're like, well, we can't stop that. That's difficult. When a team's going to run power, and they're going to run power, and everybody in the stadium knows they're going to run power, and they still run power, and they run you over when they run power. That's difficult. It's just there's unknowns whenever you're going to play first-year coaches, and that's just part of the business. And we've been through it before. I know all of our coaches in our experience have faced somebody that they haven't faced before, but it's something that you got to deal with. And ironically for us in this year, and I said it before, 4 of our first 5 opponents have first-year coaches. So we're going to see a first-year coach next week, and then we'll see one when we play Arizona, and we'll see one when we play Washington State. So. Just a new challenge. I don't look at it as a difficult thing. I just look at it as a challenge.
Gary?
Chip, talking to some of the seniors, some of the fifth-year seniors even, they talk about this week as just being different, the excitement level. For you and your coaches, is it just sort of business as usual, or do you sort of feel like they do when you enter a first game?
No, I think we all get excited because that's why you're involved in this thing. You get to we have a vision for what this football program is like, and we prepare against that vision, and then we get to measure ourselves this Saturday. So you get 12 tests, during the year, and you see how well you do. That's how we've always approached kind of this whole deal. You can study, and then now it's time to take the test. So our guys are excited to take the test, but like when you were in school, you were excited to take the test when you prepared for it. You're not excited to take the test when you're walking in saying, I hope they don't ask a question about chapter 3 because I didn't read chapter 3. You're looking through it, okay, well, or did you prepare the way you can, and when all of a sudden they put that test down in front of you, like, bang, I got it, I know it. So I think that's what they're excited about. They're excited to test themselves and challenge themselves and kind of see where this thing's going to take it to. So.
Janelle, I'm going back to the phone lines one more time. This is your chance to ask a question, Coach Kelly. Please press *1 on your telephone keypad if you have a question. Janelle, are you still with us?
Yes, sir. There are no questions.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up here. Are there, Rick?
Old saying that every year is a new team. A lot of lost leadership off of last year's team. How do you see this team developing its personality, and what is different about this team than maybe last year's team?
Yeah, every year you're reborn, in college football, especially because kids graduate, kids move on. So, but we didn't lose a whole heck of a lot in numbers. Last year was as young a team as I've been around. I think we only had 10 scholarship seniors on last year's team. So, but we lost some really good players, and now it's what I look at it as an opportunity for other guys to step up. So how we've practiced, how we've approached practice, how they approach the summer, how they approach spring ball. I've been really happy with how these guys have handled everything that's been thrown their way right now. So I'm excited to go see it, see what it looks like when we get out there on Saturday. So.
AJ?
Coach a lot of quarterbacks that are having their first start. You have to kind of calm them down and try to keep from throwing balls over everybody. What do you think you're going to have to do, or if anything, with Marcus?
We'll see. It's Tuesday. How's his demeanor tomorrow in practice and Thursday and Friday, and does that change and deviate from what you've seen in the past? And try to get a feel for where he is, especially what's game day like, and in your conversations and talking with him. So I've been in those situations where guys have been like that, and some guys have let it affect them, and then other guys don't let it affect them. And I don't know with Marcus until we put him in that situation. So we'll keep monitoring him as we go through this week and get closer to game time. So.
Any more questions? Thank you.